The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily represent those of this station or its management.
It's time now for Where You Live with Gene Sullivan, the show that deals with the news and events that affect you the most. Whether you rent or own, live in an HOA, single-family home, or an apartment building, Gene will tackle the issues right where you live. So, from the True North Painting Studios, here is the original man of steel, Resolve himself, who stands for truth, justice, and the association way. Here's Gene Sullivan.
Welcome, everyone, to Where You Live. I'm Gene Sullivan, and I'm broadcasting from the True North Painting Studios. When you're looking for the right painting contractor, what do you look for? Isn't it someone who'll respect you, your time, your property, and your budget? That's what you can expect from True North Painting. Find out more about this exceptional company by going online at truenorthpainting.com. That's trunorthpainting.com, or give them a call at 952-831-1433. I'm also brought to you by the great folks at Extreme Exteriors and American Family Insurance, the Kim Bennett Agency. I'd like to say hello, as I always do at this point in the show, to our expert man behind the board who makes it happen, Christopher Wyatt Huberty. How are you, Christopher?
I'm good, Gene. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, too.
Good.
Now, I understand you have prepared the bumper music for today's show.
I have.
And what is the theme for today's show?
Themes from 70s movies.
Themes from 70s movies.
We've done 90s, we've done 80s, time to go 70s.
Okay. So let me ask, are these movies, have you seen all of them?
I have seen 2 of the 3, and I know the third one very well.
You do know it very well.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll see what I can do here a little bit later in the show as well.
I have confidence in you.
Oh, great. I'm glad you do. Well, hey, we've got a lot to cover on today's show, so without further ado, let's begin with property management in the news. Property management in the news is brought to you by Home Furniture and Abbey Floor Coverings. Their showrooms are staffed with professionals who will help you choose what you need to fit both your lifestyle and budget. Whatever you need, chances are they'll have what you're looking for. Now, if you wish to avail yourself of special pricing you're not going to find anywhere else, all Where You Live listeners can call Customer Service Coordinator Lori Matson at 952-224-2663. Now, the first story is coming from La Jolla, California, and ABC News Channel 10 in San Diego is referring to this as an HOA horror story that only gets worse. Apparently, they say there is a man by the name of Dr. Krzysztof Kukowski, and he's a man who has spent thousands upon thousands of dollars trying to deal with flooding in his home. So what does he do? He calls the Channel 10 news team and asks them to come out and investigate in this story because he is placing the blame on his homeowners association for this whole debacle. So we have water that's coming into his home, and this gentleman, Dr. Kukowski, makes a couple of very definitive statements, and they're ones that I think are worthy of being addressed. He begins by saying that this flooding that's taking place, and he's blaming it on his HOA, he said, "I cannot live in an environment where I have no control on the top of my roof or my driveway." Now, this is a man who is of higher education, a learned man, a man who probably knows quite a bit. But because of that, and making this statement, it begs the question, and that is, if he truly says that this is a value of his, that he can't live where he does not have control over the roof and driveway of his property, the question that needs to be asked is, Dr. Kukowski, why did you purchase a home in a homeowners association? Because by virtue of the fact that you enter into an HOA, as we talk about week after week, a person does not have complete control over these items. These items are called common elements. And they're called common elements because it is an element, a component that the association is going to be responsible for taking care of for repair and replacement. And it's called common because the roof that's over Dr. Kukowski's home continues on over a neighbor and over someone else's. And because of that, collectively, these are things that are paid for by the homeowners association out of the monthly assessments that everyone pays in. Okay? And he says the nightmare continues. He said after a heavy rain, he said at the end of February, causing even more flooding in the condo in his mother's unit, just a few feet away from his. He said the damage was in the garage. And Kukowski was out of the country during the time of this storm. And so he came home probably days, weeks later to a real mess. And he says, I'm a member of this community, of this HOA, and I'm concerned, he said, about the members of this community as well. He said, something needs to be done. He said, I cannot have everything up on pallets all the time. And so he says that he has been fighting with his HOA, the Woodlands North Homeowners Association, about this flooding issue and the sloping driveway causing the water to go in for over 2 years. Now, Dr. Kukowski makes his second definitive statement here too. And again, it begs a question. He says, you don't have to be a civil engineer to know or notice that this driveway is defective. And he's referring to the fact that it's sloping into his garage. And again, it begs the question, doesn't it, Dr. Kukowski? If this is something that should be obvious to everyone, and you have this value that you cannot live in an environment where you don't have complete control, and you saw that your driveway sloped before you purchased the home, we've got to ask the question, why did you purchase the home that you did then? But those aren't questions that are being asked by the folks at Channel 10 news team. No, they are trying to paint this as something that could be merely an example of another HOA that's out of control with people on the board that don't want to spend any money. Okay? Now, what happened here, it says, is that there was work that's being done, and apparently it didn't fix the problem. In this particular case, it says the HOA board ended up hiring someone who ended up being an unlicensed contractor to install nearly 80 chimney caps on the property. When it rained, water flooded his place through the chimney, and he says the condo was ruined. Well, why does this take place? A lot of people want to quickly put blame on the board of directors here. And it could be a case where the board was inexperienced and they didn't know who it was that they were getting and hiring as a contractor, and so that could be part of it. The other aspect that is so often the case is the HOA board knows that they don't have money for everything that needs to be done. So what do? They naturally try the cheaper fix of all of the different possibilities that they have out there. And so they try that first to see if it'll work. And then when that doesn't work, then they'll go ahead and pay a little bit more and try something else. That's something we all do, isn't it? I mean, I think everybody does the same thing. You bring your car into a mechanic, and he says, well, we think it could be either this or this, and then they give you the example of, well, we can try the fix that's going to be about $120, or we could go ahead and do the fix that's $800, or we can do what we know for sure will take care of it, but that'll be about $2,200. What will most people say? Let's try that $120. Let's see if we can save money first. And so the fact that this is something that has been going on for some time is not uncommon. But those kinds of, experiences for the homeowner are not an expectation that they want to have. They want to have it done right the first time. But the reason the HOA is saving money is why? Because they turn to the homeowners year after year saying we need to raise the dues. We need to raise the assessments that we collect from everybody so that we have more money to take care of these issues. And people balk at that, and they say, no, we're not going to give you more money. We don't think it should be spent. And so they're kind of put between a rock and a hard place. But in this particular in this particular case, he's saying, I'm blaming the HOA because he said, according to the agreement he said we have with our HOA, he said it's the HOA's responsibility for any and all repairs in what's considered the common area. And he brings up a valid point. And we talked about that at the very beginning of the story. It is a common element. It is something that should be the responsibility of the association, provided that all the owners are current with their contributions that they're making and there isn't anybody delinquent. It's also contingent on the fact that there's a realistic assessment of the amount of money that's needed for all of the responsibilities. And I think, personally, that's where there is a breakdown quite a bit of the time. Okay? And then number 3 is, even though the association may have a long-range study done to take a look at what the cost is of items and what those items might be as year 5 and 10 and 20 come about, they also need to then have the discipline of setting that money aside. And so in this particular case, I don't know if the association is someone that should be blamed completely. The association, I suppose, could be blamed, but that would be part and parcel of also the responsibility of each and every homeowner and the people that they elect to the board, each and every homeowner in their willingness to contribute to what is needed to take care of these responsibilities for home ownership. In the case of Minnesota, though, I think there's something that's very important that I would like to bring up, and this is in our state statute, which deals with homeowner associations. And it says that if there is a common expense assessment that has been levied, it will be done so to all unit owners, and they shall pay their assessments. They said subject to the following. And this is interesting. In the state of Minnesota, there's a specific caveat, and that is for all HOAs, and all HOAs now that fall under MCIWA and the state statute here. It says that any common expense or portion thereof that benefits fewer than all of the units, and in this particular case, he's having flooding, but not everybody else is. It says there may be a special assessment exclusively against the units who will be benefiting from this additional repair. And so the bottom line is, you know what? There could be extra money that's needed, but the person to turn to is not just the association, because who is the association? The association is yourself and all the other homeowners. And in this particular case, in the case of Minnesota, it could also mean that if something else needs to be done and the association's responsible for it, the association may be turning to you and say, you know what, this is going to be an expense that you're going to have to buck up and have an additional expense and payment for. I don't know if that's the case in California, but I do hope that this particular situation does get resolved. But if it's going to get resolved, it'll be resolved by the homeowner association turning to themselves and saying, what do we need to do? What money do we need to set aside to make sure that this is taken care of adequately? Well, we're going to take a break right now. Don't go away. A lot more of Where You Live after these messages.